build that trust. Because when we get to the very end, right, we need to get credit card. We need to get banking information. We need to get a yes, right? And they're committing to 100, 200, $400 a month sometimes, right? Like the trust level has to be really high. And then the biggest thing is realize we're trying to do this in 30 minutes, right? So like how much information can you exchange in 30 minutes is probably like look at it that way, right? Because you have to build so much trust that they're going to give you their social, they're going to give you their bank information, right? They're going to give you birthdays for beneficiaries, and you accomplish that type of trust in 30 minutes, right? So whether you're doing it on the phone or doing it on Zoom, realize you that is your mission, right? Like you got to get them to trust you enough to get there, because if not, right, you're going to get the good, oh well, I don't give my bank information, I don't give my social. Yesterday, literally, that's what they told me. Still got it at the very end, right? At the very beginning, they're like, wait, I don't, first, they actually didn't let me run a Zoom appointment, my yesterday appointment, right? They're like, no, I don't do Zoom, right? I can't, whatever. Then they said, and I don't do business over the phone. They're like, you need to come in person. I mean, she was throwing James and Jimmy were laughing because they were throwing everything in the book at me. They were like, we don't do this. You have to come in person. I don't trust. There's too many scammers out there. We can't do that. I don't process information properly. Like I am not giving you my information unless you come in person, right? Again, what I was doing is I don't argue with the client, right? I'm like, no, I totally understand. And I was just building rapport. I'm like, looks like you've been here for how long, right? What was your, what did you want to accomplish today? Like, why do you even want to meet someone in person? Well, I'm worried about my house. Again, I was just asking questions and making deposits. Like, I completely understand. I would never do business over Zoom or over a phone. Like that's one of my favorite things to say, right? Like when anyone tells me that, I'm just telling y'all may want to write that down. I literally tell everyone I would never give anyone my phone, my social over Zoom or over the phone. I'm like, I'm surprised folks do, right? But that's why we run a Zoom appointment so that you can see we're a licensed insurance agent. That's why we provide information, right? Like this, and it just brings their walls down, right? Again, because I'm letting them know I feel the same way, right? And again, I'm making a deposit before I'm making a withdrawal. So it's super helpful, little stuff like that. Um, and what we really want to hit on today on the rapport is right, show of hands. Everyone who knows what the uh, role and purpose at the beginning is, right? Okay, and then we all know that when they hop on our appointment, right, we're supposed to build rapport at the beginning, right? Well, the thing is, you have to build rapport throughout the appointment. And I think that that's where a lot of us sometimes drop the ball. I know I did at the very beginning when I was an agent, because I did a really good job my first 5, 10 minutes. I built rapport. They liked Joe. I gave them information, went into a really good role and purpose. And I'm like, sweet, I'm crushing this appointment. And then I got to the script part and the app part, and all of a sudden I was getting kickback, right? Of like, I don't know if I want to go through this today. I don't know if I want to finish this, or we just really wanted information. And we started to recognize it was because we stopped building rapport and it became a sales pitch, right? So realize you have to continue to build rapport throughout the entire appointment, especially while you're writing the app. And so we're going to give y'all just a couple of tips on that. First of all, if to be able to do that, you do got to start memorizing the script, right? So the real script. It's hard to be just word for word reading it, right? Even though that's what we teach, right? Realize you got to know it at least halfway, right? So that sometimes you can just throw in a joke, throw in a comment, build some rapport in the middle of it, right? Because as you're getting information, those are just great times to start building rapport. Like, I'll give you all examples. When you're asking health questions, look, you realize we're still making them feel bad, right? Oh, so you have cancer, or you have diabetes, right? Or you're, maybe you're a little overweight, maybe you're this. Y'all still realize we're making them feel bad, right? Like nobody likes to be, no one wants to be told, yeah, I have this, and then we're just like, oh, okay. Right? So like for me, I'm diabetic. So it's very easy. Most folks are diabetic. I'm like, hey, I get it. I'm diabetic myself. right? And I'm like, hey, my grandmother's diabetic, right? Like it runs in our family. That's great little places to build rapport, right? If you know anyone that has any of their health conditions, right? If you know, even just a simple like, oh man, like if somebody tells me they fought cancer, they beat a heart attack, a stroke, or anything like that, like I stay there for a little bit, like, man, that's incredible, right? Like, thank God everything's, you haven't had anything since, and it looks like you're doing well, right? You should be very happy for that. And so we get to build rapport through that process. So the health conditions, if y'all want to write that down, that's a great place to continue to build rapport, right? I'm going to give y'all the next one, and that's going to be on the budget, right? I love to compliment folks that are doing well, right? And I'm going to give you both two sides of this, right? Because not all, most folks are not doing well, right? But if they're young, if they just bought a home, right? Like the biggest compliment you can give anyone under 30 is like, hey, this is your first house. That's amazing. You're doing great, right? Like I tell everyone, my first home wasn't until blank, right? Like you be able to build rapport as you're getting financial information, right? Like if I go through their income, it's like, man, dude, you're making 200 grand as a 22-year-old, like that's amazing, right? Whatever number it is, it doesn't have, right? Like you're making 60,000 as a 20-year-old, that's great. You're making 60,000 as a 40-year-old, awesome. Between both of y'all are bringing in blank dollars, right? Again, you get to continue to build rapport with compliments. That there is nothing better, right? They start feeling really good about themselves, right? And the trust level starts to go up. Um, Financing, retirement solutions, if they have any, if they have life insurance, I can't say this one enough, right? If they have life insurance already, do not be scared of the life insurance, right? If they have life insurance in place, compliment the crap out of it. Like, dude, that's awesome. Why'd you get that? How long have you had it? Like, that's great coverage. It is not going to ruin your sale, right? So I love to kind of dig in this because I know that's a touchy subject for a lot of folks because it's like, oh, they already have a $500,000 life insurance. I'm not going to sell them anything. That is not it is the complete opposite. I want y'all to realize this. If I sold baseball cards and I walked into somebody's home, right, and they have not a single sport thing in their house, what are the odds of me selling a baseball card? Or if I walk into their house and they have a collection of baseball cards and baseball bats, and it ain't, guess what I'm probably going to do in that home? I'm going to sell a baseball card, right? So you need to think of that way too as you're going into this with insurance. If they have insurance already, guess what they believe in? They believe in insurance, right? I always love to bring that up because me and my brother are the opposites, right? My brother he loves insurance. I laugh at him, right? He'll go to Walmart and when we're with my kids and they're buying little toys, he's like, "Oh, we should get the insurance on that." Like he will buy insurance for I don't know what. I'm the opposite, right? I was the opposite person. I'm like, nah, I don't believe in insurance. Not until I got into this industry, right? And so just understand it's a great compliment, and guess what you're complimenting them on? What you're about to propose. So it is very important to make them feel great about already having insurance because you're about to pitch insurance, right? So just it's a perspective thing, right? Like make sure you compliment it. Just do what we always train and what's in the script, which is just name that puppy, right? Like, oh, okay, you got life insurance. Great. When did you get that? Why did you get that? Who do you have it from? Put it aside, right? And then you get to say, great. So looks like and this is the best one. Looks like you love insurance. Today I get to help you with mortgage protection insurance. So yeah, perfect. Right? Like this rapport, it locks it in so much, right? So as you're going through their budget, compliment them, right? Again, find something. There's nothing like finding a 401k and they work somewhere that like, yeah, I was working over here and I had a 401k for blank years and now I left and it's just sitting there. Dude, I'm the same way, right? I was working in the restaurant industry. Dude, I was there for almost 20 years and my 401k didn't have a year's worth of salary, right? And they're like, yeah, exactly, right? Again, we're finding rapport through all these things that's real to them, right? And again, by me saying stuff like that, we're making a deposit. right? So even though we're digging into their finances, right, we're also giving them stuff from us, and that makes them feel way more comfortable. You'll be surprised. Before I did this, I would get very short answers or not as much information, right? Like they would only tell me what I asked, right? Like so if I ask for their budget or whatever it may be, their monthly income from work, that is all they would tell me. But as we started getting good making deposits, right, and giving them more information, it's amazing of how it'll change your appointment. Because they'll start saying stuff like, yeah, through work, I make this, but you know what? I also do this on the side. So I get an extra. You'll uncover like another $2,000, $3,000 a month in income and realize by uncovering stuff like this, that's how you get a yes, right? Because they can't tell you we need to look at the budget, we need to do this, because again, you're going to help them look at their numbers and say, hey, it looks like you have $3,000 left over every single month, right? I'm going to show you a solution that's going to solve, right, making sure if you pass away, she doesn't lose the house, and it's not going to, right, you can totally afford it. So just realize as you're also building rapport, they also give you more information, even on the health conditions, right? If you make them feel good about, right, that, hey, I have this health condition or some relate, right? Somebody in my family has had this or whatever it may be, you make them feel comfortable. They're also going to tell you all their health conditions, right? Because how many of us have wrote an app and all of a sudden is I'm healthy as a horse. And then all of a sudden, right, I got all these crazy health conditions. Realize they didn't feel comfortable too, right? Like they don't want to tell a perfect stranger that just called them randomly, made them hop on Zoom, and I got to tell you my life problems right through my health conditions, right? So you got to be able to get them. And you know what? Shout out. If y'all haven't heard Mark Schinkel run an appointment, that dude is great at building rapport. Like he's got the gift of gab, like I've never heard, right? Like he has some relation, some like he can easily find a connection, right? That has them again, and he makes the deposit. If y'all really pay attention, he makes the oh, I know this, or I did this, or this is what happened to me. Sounds like that's very similar to you. And then all of a sudden, again, the client's talking. And again, what I want y'all to focus on when we're talking about rapport building today, it's through the appointment, right? That's when it gets really dry. Because remember, if you're just following the script and you don't say a single thing outside of the script, right? It's going to get a little dry, and it becomes an interrogation really quick. James or anyone else want to add anything on right stuff y'all like to do for rapport deposits? You're muted.
Yeah, during like the beginning of the appointment when you're building rapport, I try finding out like what's something I could relate to, what's common, what gets them basically talking, and then I'll just trigger. So I mean, so when they start talking, everything of something they like, a hobby, they talk about kids, animals, whatever, pets, any kind of thing, whatever they like to do, something, and then as you're going through the appointment. Let them talk, let them do it. So it gives you time to write and then just be like, hey, next time, they're asking this, perfect. And as you were saying, you get them back talking, let them, if they're going, use that to your advantage on that part. But, hobbies, stuff they like. I always like to have different stuff. Like I just had a client that the family, both the wife and the husband, like hunting. So, hey, look, having your background, something that they can relate to. Sometimes they'll trigger something that you'll like, and they'll start talking about it too. So, it makes it easier when you're on Zoom too. Let them see something they see that you're actually interested in something on that part will help a lot.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Zoom, right? We always say let Zoom do the heavy lifting on rapport, right? So as I look at a lot of y'all's backgrounds, right? I strongly would encourage not to use a background, right? A fake background. You want them to see where you're at. You want them to see your kids' pictures. You want them to see your sports stuff. You want them to see, right? Like it's going to build a lot of rapport. It's going to help you connect with family. So, also nothing wrong. I see some of y'all are in either living room or in a room, right? Again, it takes like very few dollars, right, to either face your desk so that you have the wall behind you, and then you can put again, right? Like the SFG, everyone's like SFG, what's that mean? Right? Like, oh, why does it say Martinez Agency? And then I get to tell them, right, I run my own business here, right? My brother and my nephew are in the business, my uncle, right? It gets them asking me questions, and it allows me to build a lot of rapport, right? So don't be afraid of your background. Bookshelves are amazing, right? They love to say, hey, well, what do you read? I mean, they will say all kinds of stuff, right? And it lets you point to things. And again, it does the heavy lifting, right? Do not be afraid of showing your background, right? And then design it to put stuff behind you, right? If you like sport, whatever you like, it's going to help you connect in real life with them. So
And don't be afraid
strongly encourage that.
to have like, right, the other day I ran an appointment and Clyde was over here yelling at the neighbor's dog outside. Like they get it, right? We're human. They're like, oh, cool. What kind of dog is it? And it gives you the space to be like, hey, let's talk about a dog for a second. So don't be afraid to have like your kids, your fur babies just in the background. Gives you
Oh
something
yeah.
to talk
Oh, yeah.
about.
There is nothing like a kid running into your appointment. I can tell you all that. And let me tell y'all, I fought it forever, right? I came from in person, kneecap to kneecap, and when I came to Zoom, right, I was still where I didn't even have an office. I was running appointments out of my third bedroom, right? But it was like I was ready to die if one of my kids was knocking on the door or saying something, right? Like for me, it was like the worst thing ever. I wanted to stay so professional, right? And realize we were wrong, right? Like they love when your dogs come on screen, when your kids, right? Like, so now I know if I'm running an appointment at 5:55, right? Sandra's going to bring my 7-year old and almost like clockwork, and my 7-year old is going to come run and give me a kiss. They love that. They're like, oh, who's that? Oh, it's my son. He's going to karate, right? Like again, it's me giving deposits. That's the most powerful thing about that, right? Is I'm giving them, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, look, this is we don't have any more kids, but we have this little fur baby, right? There, our kids grew up, and now we have our little puppy, right? And I'm like, oh sweet, I have right 2 dogs at home, or whatever it may be. Like it opens up and makes rapport through the appointment so much easier too, right? So again, don't be afraid of noise in your like I know it used to be taboo, and it's not anymore, right? Like they want to know you're talking to a real person, that there is nothing wrong with sounds. Like when they hear James and Jimmy are arguing or yelling and playing around over here, they're like, where are you at? I'm like, oh, I'm in my office, but my brother and my nephew are here, right? It just allows to become a real person and realize when anything happens while you're on Zoom, I want y'all to really get this. This is really cool. It is a deposit for the client, right? Like it's information that happened to them in real life, and oh, it proves to them that you're a real person, right? Because things are happening around you, and you're still trying to work. So again, and the reason I'm glad you brought that up, Amber. I was terrified of it. I was like, you don't understand. My kids would come over here, and I was like, shh, get down, and they were right here hiding, right? And it was the complete opposite, right? Now it's like, sweet, come in here, and it's going to help me build rapport. So again, anything that'll happen on Zoom, it's a leverage. I promise you. Don't be afraid of it.
One more that I have found that when you're going through the layer in the appointment that talks about like how much equity is in the home, in the very beginning, if you confirm like, hey, so I've got your mortgage, yeah, 123 Main Street, and the mortgage is 120,000, and they're like, oh, it's actually not a mortgage, it's a HELOC or it's a line of credit. You can ask why they got that, and sometimes it's fixing up their home, and people love to talk
Oh
about
yeah,
what they did to their home. And then you can even use that for ammo later to be like, hey, your home is worth a lot more. And
that good looking kitchen.
right. You can also say, like, when people start talking about their children living far away, using that for ammo later on when they're looking for the full coverage, but you can use it for, hey, your kids, they're married, they've got 4 kids, they live in 2 states over. You can just kind of use that to
Yeah.
break down the full payoff later on.
I love that. Again, right? And what we're teaching today on this part is you need to be building rapport throughout the appointment, right? I know we teach, right? You hop on Zoom, you build rapport, then you go to role and purpose, and then the real script. Yes, right. But realize you got to keep the flow, right? Like you got to keep that trust building. And little places, right? You're still intaking information. You're not being rude, right? Sometimes they start talking and they're telling me all this stuff, and I'm like, sweet. And so John, on income for you, right? I'm interrupting them, right? Think about that, right? Like when you're having a conversation with your friend, they're just randomly talking, and then all of a sudden you just start randomly talking, right? And you're just like, hey, did you remember we need to go do this? Right. So treat them that way, right? It's not about being formal, it's about being real. Right. And so just realize you're not interrupting them, you're letting them build rapport, you're letting them talk, right? And then it's like, hey, John, and let me do a little bit here, right? On the work piece, I know you said you were right, an engineer. What's the monthly income on that? Right. And then guess what? They'll crack it. And then sometimes, man, when you got them, when you ask them a question, they give you the answer, and then they go right back to the story they were telling you. Right? Like realize you're going to close that home. They trust you at a very high level, right? But that only happens as you're building rapport throughout the whole appointment. Um, just realize this, write this one down. Silence will kill the sale. Okay. If you ever find yourself filling out an application and it's just dead silence because you have the information, that's not good. Realize what they're doing. You got to remember so it's all about the experience for them. Realize that's giving them time to think. And if you got an overthinker in front of you, you don't know what's going on in their head, right? Like, oh my God, is this a real person? What am I doing? They just gave me my social. They're everything is running through their head. Do I really need this? It's going to be $145. Right? Yes, I know he went over our budget, and yes, we have $2,000, but now where can I replace that $150? Like they're thinking 100 miles an hour, right? You got to stop that, and that's how you do that, by building rapport. You got to bring them back into the trust zone, right? So be very, very cautious of when you're running an appointment. And it doesn't really happen too much when you're in the script. It happens a lot when you're in the appointment, or I'm sorry, when you're in the application, right? So when you're filling out the application, look, you're going to have to multitask, right? Like you're over here entering all their information. You got to be, and look, there's nothing wrong with maybe even stop typing if you don't feel comfortable typing and asking a question. So there's nothing wrong with filling out some of the information and then building some rapport, right? Like just there is no right or wrong way, right? Like there's no rules in a lot of this stuff, right? And I love to say that, right? A lot of this stuff doesn't have an actual rule. They're self-inflicted rules. Oh, I can't do this. I can't say that. I can't. You can be human, right? Like build rapport through it. You don't have to scream through the application if you're not good enough yet. Trust me, I used to run 2 hour and a half appointments to write 2 apps, right? I was super slow. Okay. They're going to be okay. And in fact, if they're rushing you at the end, is because they're done with you. You got to realize that. If they're rushing you off at the end, right? If it's not an actual, I got to go to work, they're done with you. They're bored. They're tired. The friendship is not being built. So that's also an indicator of, hey, I need to relook at my appointment. Because let me tell you, very few people have ever told me, right? But I'm a talker. I've been in the service industry. Very few of my appointments have ever said like, hey, Joe, like, how much longer is this going to take? Because if you ever hear me running, we're yapping the entire time while I'm filling out. And like, I'm talking about after pivot, after a decline, we're moving, and they can care less because we're just having a conversation, trying to get them coverage at the same time. Right. So the rapport building through the entire appointment is really big. Right. I hope y'all wrote that down. Silence will kill the sale.
Another tip is just making sure you're talking. If there's a couple, make sure you're talking. Keep both of them engaged, the wife and the spouse, not just one ended too. Because guess what the other person's thinking? This is a waste of time. This ain't it. They're
Yeah.
thinking the
Good
same
point.
thing. So make
Good
sure you're
point.
getting both of them involved. And then another tip too is if you don't know what to talk about or you can't relate to something exactly, you could borrow somebody's. You mean I always use my brothers like, hey, I got a lot of nephews, but like, hey, I don't have a lot of kids. So like, I only have like I was one and done with one kid. And like, but my brother has 4 kids, so I have a lot of nephews, and and borrow somebody else's, or to be like, hey, well, they got a little dog too. It's a little, whatever. You could borrow somebody else's story too and relate to that, and use that to your effect as well to build rapport as well. So not necessarily does it have to be something you could borrow somebody else's story, family members, friends, anything like that to help you build rapport.
Good, good. And then the only thing, right? I'll just close it with this, right? If you're not talking, realize at the application, it becomes a sell, right? Because again, you're just intaking information, right? You're just doing nothing but withdrawals. What is this? What is this? What is this? What's your social? What's your height and weight, right? What's your bank information? You're asking all the questions. Hey, just to confirm, you don't have any of this. So it becomes an again, you can do a great job of the appointment. Be careful in the application. That's where we see that happen the most, right? So and it's okay if you got to stop typing and talk a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. It'll do a couple things. It'll let you finish the application, right? But more than anything, it also lets them remember you all the way to the very end, right? And that's where, the saying I love to say, right, is do they remember you on the 15th? Or do they remember $150 on the 15th? And right, what I mean by that is every month it charges their card or their account, right? So do they remember the conversation they had with you and what you made them feel, right? Or do they just see $150 being withdrawn? Because you're gonna get it canceled. They're gonna go and cancel $150. Or right, every time when they see that payment, they're like, man, James helped me put that coverage in place. Babe, we know we're covered. I know that sounds silly, but I promise you that's what actually happens on their end, right? Versus, oh, I got. They sold me $150, right? You got to be able to have them remember you. Again, right? I'll get random text messages, right? Like, hey, you said, and they'll remember stuff that I don't even remember I told them, right? They'll be like, hey, I remember you were going to your kid's basketball game. How did they do? Right? Like I'll just get random stuff like that again because we're just having a conversation and they remember it. So next part, right? So that's building rapport throughout the whole thing. The next tip, right, is going to be going for no. Okay, so you've done a great job at all this part. And what I mean go for no is look, more often than none, we're going to get I need to go think about this, right? Or I need to go talk to my wife, right? I need to check, well, whatever it may be. You could have ran the perfect appointment. There's still people that are going to tell you that, right? So this is a great little tip to kind of get a few more of those a little more committed, okay? And what that tip is, right? So the first thing is going to be, right? You get that good old, we need to think about it. We need to still talk, right? I don't make a decision right now. Be like, great. Again, we don't create friction. Realize if anything that you say that's against what they say, that is friction in their eyes, right? In their head, it's going to be friction. So, right, how do we avoid that? Is agreeing with them. I totally get it. I understand, right? So the wall is down, right? I've completely agreed with them right now, right? The next one, this is the closer right here for getting an application still, right? Is okay, great. You ready? Is this suspenseful, James? That's a cliffhanger. Right? Hey, the insurance company also has to think about it. Right? So the next step is we need to fill out the application and see if they're even going to approve you. Right? That's a good one. And then the one more is also, right? It's like, hey, you're kind of thinking about nothing still, right? So that you can have something to think about. Now I'm even making them feel like, yeah, I'm going to give them something more to think about, right? Is let's see if they're even going to approve you and poke the bear when they have health conditions because of the diabetes and insulin and the surgery a couple of years ago, right? Again, these are just quotes. We don't even know if they're going to approve you. I might have to show you something else, but we can find out in 7 minutes if they're going to approve you. And then go and assume the sale. So what's that middle name? Right? Write that puppy. This is facts. I want y'all to understand this too. Okay. This is not to just get a sell and trick them into getting coverage. That is not what we're doing. Okay. I want y'all to understand insurance a little bit better. They are literally thinking about nothing unless you have an approval, right? How many times have y'all written an app and it gets declined and we have to pivot? Happens to me every single week sometimes, right? It is a true statement. They are thinking about nothing. They're thinking about a quote that we don't know exists. I have had 25-year-olds tell me they're perfectly healthy and it did not go the way we thought it was. Right? So you're not lying to them. You're actually being bold enough to tell them the truth that they're thinking about nothing, right? Because they're going to go think about this. We're going to stretch the sales process out for no reason. Hey, Garrett, so you want to do this? And he's like, no, let me think about it. Hey, Garrett, there's really not much to think about yet until we get you approved. Let's fill out the application. It's going to take about 7 minutes. It'll tell us if you're approved. Then there you can decide if let's put it in place or if you still need to think about it. But at least there we know it's real. It's actually real. They almost always say yes, right? The ones that are gonna do it anyways. I want y'all to understand that, right? And then so you write the application, and then once it's approved, then they have something to think about. But it gives you such a great leverage point, right? They've moved through the process of seeing what it's like, because they still think, I promise you, that it's going to be like this whole, realize you just put them through a 30-minute appointment for them to write an application. In their head, they think it's like another hour, right? So that they don't want, sometimes they just want to get off. So, right, they want to get off the phone or they want to get off the Zoom and they don't want to sit there anymore. So realize you can close that gap of their thinking by telling them, hey, let's find out if they're even going to approve you in 7 minutes. Right. And the two phrases was like, hey, you're kind of thinking about nothing. The insurance company has to first approve you, or they also have to think about it. Right. Or the other one, right, is, hey, there's nothing to think about because it's just a quote. Let's see if they'll even approve you. It takes about 7 or 10 minutes and we can find that out really quick. So you have something to think about. And again, think about it. So think about it, right? In that sentence, nothing has created resistance. I'm still telling them they're going to be allowed to think about it, but we're writing an application or we're starting to fill out the application. And for the folks that do say yes, let's see if they'll approve you, right? And the ones that go through that process, almost every time they let you put it in place. So it's a huge step of getting more client. Again, right? They're just afraid to go through that process. So almost everyone that tells you, yes, let's find out if I get approved, is gonna let you put that puppy in place right there and then. So know that number, right? The other eight, right? And again, that's of the people that say yes to that statement, right? They're still gonna say no, that's fine, but you gotta go for no, right? Realize this number right here. And before I go into the number, Chris, you have your hand up.
Hey, you keep using the phrase "go for no." Are you familiar with the book by that name?
Yep. Oh yeah, we've all read it millions of times.
Excellent. I was just wondering. I'm new to the organization, but that's a book I've had in my back pocket for a decade plus. So.
Oh yeah. You always got to go for no, right? And so in fact, what we're teaching y'all here, we're going to go for 3 no's, right? Again, they've told you I need to think about it. Whatever they told you, you are not writing the application right now. This is the first no that you're going to go for. Hey, you're actually thinking about nothing, or hey, this is just a quote. Let me help you get something that you're actually able to think about, because they haven't approved you yet. And you poke the bear because of the heart attack 2 years ago, because of whatever, right? According to what you've given me, it should approve you, but I don't know that the insurance company makes that decision. So let's find out really quick if they're going to say yes, right? That's the first one. They can tell you no right there, right? The second one, this is a big one here, right? Is they're going to be like, well, we need to think about it. We need to go whatever. I'll get a hold of you whenever. Okay. You do not leave an appointment that way ever. Okay. There is no, that is the biggest no that I can tell you, right? Like and I promise y'all this, they will never call you back. Okay. So do not leave the appointment with them saying, hey, no, I got your number. We'll get a hold of you. Be like, so the rebuttal here, right? Your second go for no is, hey, James, they give me 40 families a week. I do got to fit you in back into this week, right? Looks like I have a 3 o'clock, and I'm going for tomorrow. Okay. What are we really talking about here? We went over their budget. We know that they can afford it, right? We still don't know if they can get covered if they haven't let us fill out the application. So it is nothing to think about. Don't forget that, right? But it takes it. What are we talking about? It does not take 2 weeks to talk to my wife if we want to put this coverage in place. Okay. If you want to go have a personal conversation, I get it. Tomorrow we're talking with a decision. Okay. You have to have that mindset. So, hey, looks like tomorrow, same time. Is that going to work for you? Do you need a little more time? Like, what are you thinking? And again, I poked the bear, right? Like, you think a day and a half is plenty of time to think about, right? Do you want to put the coverage in place for Mary? If that's what you think, let's go Thursday. One more day. I move over one more day. Almost every single one of my rebooks is tomorrow or the next day after that. Almost every single one. They are not going to tell us next week. That is fake. There is nothing to think about for a whole week. Okay. Are you going to get few? Yes, but those are the people that are just being stubborn, right? Like almost everyone, you should be able to reschedule that same week, right? So push for that no, right? You got to go to that, right? It's, hey, tomorrow, okay, the next day, and then they're like, no, right? So if I'm getting on the second day and I'm still getting a no, let's just call you. I'm like, hey, look, again, we've already gone through the whole presentation, right? Or I just tell them, hey, we've already gone over everything. If we're meeting back up, right, in a day or two, whatever I'm telling them, Thursday, right, it's only going to take me about 10, 15 minutes because at that point, we've already gone over it. It's just to meet back up on telling me which one you want to apply for. So this is not going to be a long call. That also helps deter that, right? They think like, oh my God, another 45-minute call, right? Also, so to help them close that gap in their head, right? Of no, when we come back on, it's you're telling me yes to which one, and I'm writing the application, right? You get one more, no, we need to figure this out or whatever it may be. And I actually use this on both, right? So if they push back and they make me reschedule them, right, today or for tomorrow or the next day, or if they're still giving me the, hey, we'll call you, my last go for no is, hey, Amber, I just want to make sure we've gone over everything, right? Is this something that you're even concerned about? Like, did I show you something that would actually help your family? You need to get the no, okay? Do not be afraid of the no right there. You have to understand, once you don't close it right there, I want y'all to write this number down, 10%. 10%, and I promise y'all, I don't care how good you are, you're never going to run away from this number. If you didn't close them right there and then on that appointment, they are now in the 10% box of the you're going to get an app. So that means you need to have 10 think about it before one of those think about it becomes a yes and actually show up in their appointment. How many of y'all have had to think about it, reschedule them, and they didn't show up? Guess what? 90% of them ain't going to show up. It was their way of saying no. Chris Cook taught me this so well because I was really bad at this. Okay. It makes more work. You have to get the no right there in the appointment, right? If they truly going to think about it, great. 10%, 10%, that's 10%. The rest of the 90%, it's just their way of telling you no. But if you don't get them to verbally say no, what are you doing the next 2 weeks? Chasing them, trying to call them back, wondering if you said something wrong, spending all this time on who knows what, right? So you have to be very cautious of that, right? Like you're going to spend so much time after, right? And you don't realize it when you can just be dialing and booking more appointments because you think that they're actually thinking about it. But it was an actual no, right? So push for that no in that appointment really hard, right? And when I say really hard, it's just being real with them. Hey, Chris, I just want to make sure, right? We did go through everything. Did you understand how the coverage works? And they're going to tell you, yes, I understand it. I get it. hey, so I just want to make sure, right? If I'm going to put you back on my schedule on Thursday, is this something, or like, did you see an option that actually makes sense for you? And then they're like, yeah, we're probably thinking on this one, but let's me and my wife talk about it because I really like the full mortgage payoff, but probably about half is what we're going to be able to afford or be comfortable with. Great. That's something to think about, right? But they'll tell you, you'll be amazed of how when you get a little right in honest with them, right? Of saying, hey, I just want to make sure, Chris, this is something that, you know what, it just doesn't make sense for us, Joe, right? It does. Perfect. Not everyone's going to say yes. Take the no, right? Remember the numbers, right? 4 to 6 sits. So you need 4 to 6 no's before someone's going to say yes. Get the no and move. Get the no and move. Boom, you got an app, right? Like you got to really love these numbers and understand that it's all still part of the sales process. And then just the last tip, right, is something I already hit on. It's the bamfam, right? Book a meeting from the meeting. Okay, book a meeting from the. Never leave the appointment without another appointment. That does not exist. Okay. If they are straight up telling you, I don't know, guess what? They're just being nice and they don't want to say no. So get the no. Hey, I just want to make sure this is something that you're even concerned about, right? Or do you care about this coverage? You'll be surprised. Some folks will still be like, yeah, but I won't be ready till. Look, if this was a real concern, Amber, we have to look at it this week, next week, right? Like, what are we really talking about here, right? Because if they don't let me book a meeting, I'm not going to call them back if I've already sat with them, right? It's a no, right? Y'all have to accept that, right? Because if not, you're wasting your time on those 10%. I would rather have y'all call brand new leads or book brand new appointments, right? Where you have a 50% close rate versus chasing 10 percenters, right? Like mathematically, you keep doing this, you're going to go broke, right? Because you're chasing folks that 90% of them are going to tell you no versus chasing folks when you sit with them, you have a 50. And then if you get good at the appointment, right, you have a 70, 80% close rate, right? So know your stats, right? When you sit with a family, 50% of the time, if right, just following script and you're a normal agent, 50% of the people you sit with, you're going to get a yes. Okay. If you start getting good, you're at a 70, 80% close rate. But that's only if that's what's on your schedule. Or are you chasing 10 percenters? Right. So a lot of new agents will be like, oh, I sat with 4 this week and they told me they're going to think about it. And then they spend all their time. Maybe I should go look for more options. Then they call Amber and, hey, Amber, I got this appointment that I sat with on Monday. Realize what's really happening, right? Because it happened in our office yesterday. So we were laughing, right? So if you're chasing a 10 percenter, you're now wasting your time after the appointment trying to figure out, do you need to work new quotes, trying to whatever, thinking 5, 10, 15 minutes. Then you go grab somebody else. Hey, Amber, this is what happened. Now there's 2 people spending 20 minutes on a 10% maybe. Then that person calls another person. Now you got 3 people. So in our office the other day, the joke was, right, there was 3 of us talking for like 15 minutes on a 10 percenter, right? And this was Jimmy's appointment. Ask Jimmy if they showed up yesterday. They didn't, right? So think about that. That was an hour worth of work between 3 of us that got spent on 10% close rate, right? So we just have to be careful. Jimmy, wasted time, right? Like we have to be careful with where you're spending your time and knowing your numbers. And that's why, right? The story here is the BAM is very important, right? Book the meeting from the meeting. Do not accept it. Look, that's the way you do business. You don't go to a doctor and they tell you, hey, we're going to need you to come back and follow up. And you don't tell the doctor, all right, I'll get back to you when I'm coming back. That doesn't work that way. They tell you, hey, so I got another opening on blank day. It ain't an option, right? But that's just how they've been trained, right? And that's how they've trained us. So train your clients the same way, right? Like you are a licensed insurance agent that's going to be there the worst day of their life. You are not the cable company. Okay. So have yourself that respect of no. So let's put something back on the books, right? Like I have 40 families a week and they make me sit with y'all. I want to make sure I have plenty of time that when we get back on, you make a decision and I'm writing an application for you and I can answer all the questions. I want to respect you. So when's a good time? And they will push back and be like, hey, it's going to take 10, 15 minutes. Realize if you go with no, right? And this is what I'm telling the client, Amber, realize if it's a no, it's a 1 minute phone call, right? Because we're going to get back on here and you're going to say, no, we decided to go elsewhere. Great, bye. But I need to put you back on my calendar. They will get on my calendar. I almost everyone. It is so very few people will not get put back on my calendar. And that week, it's usually tomorrow or the next day. So, any questions on any of that? We got a few more minutes. If not, man, that's what we got for y'all.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If someone says no, I've already done something, why put them back on your calendar? You're just going to be aggravating it.
Say that one more time.
If somebody tells you no, they've already found something else. Why are you going to put them back on your calendar? You're just aggravating a situation.
Correct, right? You would, if they're telling you no, that's the whole point of going for the no, right? Like get the no right there and then so that you don't have to put them back on your calendar, right? Like make sure that's why, again, you need to be very clear. Hey, if Thursday we're getting on, it's because, right, this is something you want to do. Yes, right? Or you know what? We don't find the value. Get the no right there because then you don't have to put them on your calendar, right? So
I want to kind of
clears
clarify
that up.
something too. This is in the appointment, not when you're booking the appointment.
Good point. Any other questions before we go?
I got a tip for Robert. I think it was Robert with the social, having issues with the social. I don't know if anyone else is having issues with the social, but I find it super easy to get the social, especially in today's climate. It's a couple questions. It's, Joe, are you a U.S. citizen? Yeah, everyone's a U.S. citizen. You want to be happy about it? What state were you born in? I was born in this state. What's your social? I mean, it's boom, 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 right?
Also, don't make it the first question you ask when you're filling out the application.
No, I say, hey, how are you doing? What's your
Yeah.
social?
All right, Rodney.
Yeah, just be careful, right? So what we mean by that is if you're filling out the application, the social is actually one of the first questions, right? It's like the third or fourth, whatever, right? I actually skip it to the end, right? Or once I know I've completely, like they're again, they're yapping, they're comfortable, right? So I get the name, height, weight. I go down to their address, what state were they born in, right? What's their annual income, right? Whatever other questions are on there, and then right, but again, right? Don't make it a big deal too. Make sure you're like, Amber, can I get your social security number? Right? Just you can make it weird. Don't make it weird. Be like, hey, and it's super simple, right? I got their address, perfect, and your social, John. Boom, that's it.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I even like to say last question on the first page, what's your social? And then they're like, well, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, great. And we keep talking and I move on.
And then even there too, they're gonna be a little hesitant, right? Like you'll hear a little pause, even if it's just like, hey, even if you're smooth with it, like, hey, John, and your social, and then they're like, but don't say anything. You're the one that's gonna make it weird by like, well, this is only for security purposes, and don't jump in. Just be quiet. I promise you, they're gonna give it to you, right?
I get more hesitation on the height and weight for a female than a social.
Stop asking it like that, Rodney. Be like, how heavy are you?
Force me to ask. Don't get mad at me on height and weight. Like, I'm just.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank y'all all. That's what we got for y'all. Again, if any of this helps you, I hope it does. Please post it on Band and it'll help somebody else. So thanks.
Thank you.